Hi, welcome back to Tao Twang. I'm Dave. So, YouTube's like a time capsule where we make stuff, we put it up here, but you never know when somebody's going to see it, tomorrow, right now, the same day, 6 years from now, right? But in real time, it's a few days after New Year's 2023. And so, not a lot of announcements here today, but just another thank you for a great year. And we're just going to keep going in 2024. And if you're just joining us for the first time, great. We're so glad that you found us. And, leave some comments, introduce yourself. There's a lot of, folks that hang out on this channel that you'll get to know, you'll recognize in the comments and things. It's just really fun. We got some other stuff too. We got a Facebook page and a Patreon page. Not going to take up your time today with a lot of announcements about that. And we're going to get right into this kind of Stonesy feeling thing. I wasn't originally thinking that. I got some chords going. I put a drum beat on there, and then I started playing that bass part, and that's when I realized, like, this has a real Tattoo You era feel to it. Stones, later Stones, if you're old like me. So, and that did kind of inform the kinds of licks I was doing, because once I started thinking Stones, feeling that, then I started getting into that kind of grindy rock and roll stuff. Right? And that kind of phrasing and stuff. And I tried to keep this, pretty even, like mostly eighth note feel. There's other things that we can do, and we're going to do a little bit deeper dive on this over on Patreon this week if you want to check that out. But it's minor pentatonic. It's all is going to be, in these first couple shapes mostly. I think I went down here and kind of duplicated some of the notes that are up here. Okay, so you can kind of take your pick. You get a different flavor and a different kind of timbre when you're in different parts of the neck. And for me, it makes me choose different notes and things. So I like to kind of tie my rhythm back in, like get back down there and here and there. You'll see in a lot of the intros on this channel, I'll kind of go back and pick up the chords, in when I'm soloing and stuff. So we're going to put this track on and kind of just look at the chords first. And we're not really going to pick apart both of these guitar parts. There's two guitars on this backing track. One of them just does a real straight, on the three chords. B, E, D. You feel that Stonesy bounce there? Now, technically, it's a B minor. Okay, that's important because we're using B minor pentatonic for all of these licks exclusively. But a lot of that, like that that chomping, it doesn't have a third in it. So it's a power chord, right? It's just, root fifth and maybe another root in there. So, and I like that with a lot of rock rhythms. You leave that third out, and it's a different, kind of feel, a real, rocky foundational feel. And that's cool. But like I said, if you really, go to start fitting the scales in there, a lot of times, you can alternate your major and minor pentatonic, and you can experiment with that. But in this case, you're going to want to stick mainly to the minor. All right. So, we're going to leave it at that for the backing track. There's some, some parts in there that you might pick up. There's that old green Monalishi type of thing there, right? If you're not familiar with that, I'm not going to try to spell it, but, look that up if you can get away with, phonetically Googling that. That's a cool old Fleetwood Mac song. Judas Priest did a really cool cover of it too. So kind of a side note there, but let's get in here and just warm up with some minor pentatonic stuff. And you can use single note. We're going to do a lot of double, two strings at once stuff in here, but just do you just to get limber, and don't be afraid to be repetitive with this. It's not about, using a lot of fancy note sequences. It's more rhythm. This is fun, right? This is not like where you're going to have to remember, elaborate licks and, look at something and try to decipher it just to play, one measure, right? This is stuff that you take these shapes and you use it in more of an abstract way, right? Like you're painting with a sponge instead of a tiny brush. Right? You're just bam, 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 right? And, you can put some intricacies in there, but the whole thing is really the blood and guts of it is just that rhythmic dedication to that groove. And, it's fun because it doesn't matter if I hit one string in there or two. The more junk, the better in there, really. And, you can fine tune it, but start off by kind of like, really just getting in there and dancing like nobody's watching. And then see what you like and kind of shape it out and repeat it and come back around and make your own arrangement of it. Hopefully that made sense, right? Versus, nope, got to stop what I'm doing and study this, these four notes in the tab or whatever. We're not doing that on this because it would drive you crazy, right? And it would drive somebody crazy to try to write that all out. It's not necessary. So here's some of the moves. That's kind of a single note version of it, but you could go. Right, so you got a lot of. And you'll notice that when some of the chords, like when you go to the B, you don't really want that one in there as much, although I wouldn't, stop what I was doing. Just because I hit that, I just keep going. But, you want it to be, if you emphasize. Hear that two note, that's that green Monalishi thing again. That's just so cool, and it's easy conceptually, right? I don't mean to say that any of this stuff's easy to get used to, the physicality of it, but that's what we're working on. We're not going to have to, strain ourselves to remember this stuff if you're already familiar with the minor pentatonic shape, right? Then up here, I did a little. It's that same sound as. There's a little thing for the D. So now let's do a little bit of chord by chord stuff just to kind of break it down. I'll give you an example, then we'll look at it. But again, a lot of this stuff's going to work with a broad brush, just kind of like anywhere you put it in this groove. If you really commit to it, you're going to be able to make something out of it. And that's why it's so fun. Little single note. Okay. There, I meant to click that off. Hopefully that track gives you, a lot of stuff that kind of mingles in with what you're doing, right? And you get in that free space where you're not, it gets kind of loose in there, like you're dancing in a crowd of people, right? Instead of just by yourself. And you're riffing off of what's going on around you, okay? Not copying it, just letting it influence your groove, right? Now, if you want to think of it a little bit progressively, meaning chord by chord, you could do, like I said, you get. There's some stuff that kind of really works for that B. Then, of course, just that straight up E. See how I'm just using these really blocky shapes, right? But they sound cool when you start to make them dance. Okay. Every once in a while, I'll hit that full B minor. Not a lot, though, because I like to keep it real chunky on something like this. But, if you really want to just nail that every once in a while, it kind of sounds cool. And it really kind of, drives that into the ear, that's the tonal center of the whole thing, really. Even though most of the time it's just implied by the notes that we're playing, not full chords. So over that D, you can kind of push that a little bit, in that backing track, one of them's very even. But, let that rub. Don't try to match everything up all the time with something like this. Let it be. Okay, so then I'm doing a little riff off that third, sliding into the third of the D major. If I took that down to one string at a time, or one note, single note, it'd be something like. If I harmonize that by simply hitting the string above it every time as well. All right. And one other little thing that I'll show you here real quick was at one point it went. Now is that like? There's an octave higher version of that. And again, I'm just covering that high E string there and letting that also sound. And there's just kind of that blues scale type sound. You'll get it. Do your own thing on this. Use the examples that I just gave you as shapes to sort of guide you, but in a broad way, like we've been saying. And then do your own thing rhythmically and really experiment with it. You've got to do that experimentation, really, because otherwise it would be a very tedious task to go through something like this and try to, copy every aspect of it from someone. Trust that inner dance, and then come back and watch some more videos and see if or leave me some comments, or jump over onto the Patreon version where we'll kind of unpack it a little bit further. You're not missing anything if you're just on YouTube watching this. That should really get you going on this kind of sound and this kind of method. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know how it goes for you. I'll talk to you next week.